Holy shit, she's actually lighting the match. At 2:47 a.m., HOA President Constance Harwick stands in my driveway in her pink bathrobe, pouring gasoline around my barn and striking the flame. All because her cat came home with one tiny scratch from brushing past my fence. Not bitten, not attacked, just a scratch that healed in days. From my bedroom window, I record everything in night mode as fire swallows 30 years of my family's blood, sweat, and tears. She stands there, arms crossed, smirking like she owns the world. 8 years as president, married to the town's biggest contractor. She finds neighbors for wrong paint, tall grass, unapproved mailboxes. Everyone's scared of her. But tonight, she picked the wrong fight. I've stayed silent for months, too silent. She has no clue how badly she's about to pay. Worst HOA nightmare you've ever had? Drop it below, because you won't believe how this one ends. Let me back up and tell you how this nightmare started. 6 months ago, life was perfect. I'm Dalton Briggs, 52, and every morning I wake up to the smell of coffee brewing mixed with chicken feed, while our rooster Napoleon crows like he's announcing the damn apocalypse. The sound echoes across 12 acres of pure heaven that my grandfather left me back in '87. My wife Marlene runs a thriving catering business from our farmhouse kitchen, turning our heirloom Cherokee purple tomatoes and fresh herbs into wedding spreads that make people weep with joy. She's booked solid through next spring. Word travels fast when your food actually tastes like it came from soil instead of a factory. Our daughter Jessie, 16, raises Buff Orpington heritage chickens for 4-H while most kids her age are brain dead on social media. This kid knows more about poultry genetics than most veterinarians and dreams of studying agricultural science at State. The weathered wooden sign by our gravel driveway reads, Briggs Family Farm, Est, 1987. And every morning when I see it, I think about how proud Grandpa would be watching his little operation still feeding families 3 decades later. Then some genius at City Hall decided our little farm needed improvement. Willowbrook Estates, this sterile suburban nightmare, kept expanding until we were surrounded like Custer at Little Bighorn. Suddenly, we're getting certified letters about annexation and HOA compliance integration. I figured our agricultural status would protect us. Agricultural grandfathering laws protect existing farm operations from new HOA restrictions, because established agricultural use predates any residential covenants. Simple rule: if you were farming first, the HOA can't retroactively ban what you're already legally doing. That's when we met Satan in a Lexus. Constance Harwick makes every HOA horror story you've heard look like a children's book. She's 58, drives a white SUV so clean it hurts your eyes, and has these razor-sharp manicured nails she taps like a death march on her clipboard of doom. Her husband Preston built 70% of the neighborhood through Harwick Construction, which means they basically own everyone's mortgage and control every contractor in town. 8 years as HOA president. 8 years of perfecting the art of neighborhood terrorism through lawsuits, fines, and pure intimidation. 3 weeks after annexation, Connie arrived for her welcome visit. The Lexus pulled into our gravel driveway like a hearse at a funeral. She emerged with a clipboard, measuring tape, and the kind of smile that serial killers practice in mirrors. The crunch of her designer heels on our gravel sounded like bones breaking. "Mr. Briggs," her voice could freeze fire, "your rustic situation creates certain aesthetic challenges for our community standards." She handed me a 47-page covenant book, thick as a phone book and twice as threatening. Every highlighted section screamed, "You're screwed," in fluorescent yellow ink. "Surely there's some grandfather protection," Marlene asked, appearing from the kitchen with flour-dusted hands and that sweet tone she uses right before she's about to lose her temper. Connie's laugh was like glass shattering. "Oh, sweetie, grandfather clauses are so quaint. Things evolve. Progress happens." The way she said sweetie made me want to sick Napoleon on her ankles. For 20 agonizing minutes, she measured, photographed, and documented everything like she was building a criminal case. The metallic click of her tape measure mixed with the distant sound of our chickens scratching contentedly in the dirt, completely oblivious that their world was about to change forever. Her vanilla musk perfume hung in the air like a toxic cloud even after she climbed back into that pristine death machine. The car door slammed with the finality of a judge's gavel. "We'll be in touch very soon," she purred through the window, eyes glittering with malicious anticipation. As the Lexus disappeared down our dirt road, Jessie came running from the coupe, her boots sending up little puffs of dust. "Dad, why was that scary lady taking pictures of Napoleon and measuring our chicken wire?" Looking down at my daughter, this amazing kid who'd been showing birds since she could walk and had her whole agricultural future planned out, I realized our peaceful life had just officially ended. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday, thick as a legal brief and twice as threatening. Marlene found it wedged in our mailbox like a death sentence, complete with "urgent, compliance required," stamped in angry red letters across the front. I tore it open at the kitchen table while my coffee went cold and Napoleon crowed his morning announcement outside. "The Briggs property chicken coop structure violates Willowbrook Estates Architectural Review Board standards," I read aloud, my voice getting tighter with each word. "Immediate compliance required within 30 days or face $3,000 penalty assessment." $3,000 for a chicken coop my grandfather built with his own hands 40 years ago. Marlene looked over my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck as she read along. They can't be serious. But they were dead serious. The letter included professional photographs of our property taken from every conceivable angle, close-ups of weathered barnwood, the slightly sagging roofline where decades of honest work had settled the beams, even detailed shots of individual chicken wire sections. Someone had spent serious time and money documenting our so-called violations. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. These weren't photos taken from the public road. The angles were wrong, the perspective too intimate. Someone had been on our neighbor's property with a telephoto lens, shooting through their back fence like some kind of suburban spy operation. Connie had been planning this assault for weeks. That weekend, I drove to the county courthouse, one of those old limestone buildings that smells like floor wax, musty paper, and decades of bureaucratic despair. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects as I requested box after box of property records, zoning files, and historical documents that most people never bother reading. 4 hours of squinting at faded paperwork later, I hit pure gold. There it was, buried in the original 1995 subdivision filing, agricultural exempt, grandfathered, operations protected. I'd read enough property law over the years to know this was bulletproof legal protection. Original subdivision plats create binding agreements that survive HOA formation. Basically, if you were farming first, the HOA can pound sand. Monday morning, I sent Connie a certified letter of my own. 3 pages of legal citations, property law precedents, and a polite but firm explanation of why her $3,000 fine was about as legally binding as a grocery list. The crunch of gravel in our driveway announced her response Wednesday afternoon. This time, she didn't come alone. Preston's contractor truck idled behind her Lexus, diesel exhaust mixing with the afternoon humidity to create this toxic haze that seemed to hang over everything like a storm cloud. Connie marched across our yard with some guy in a hard hat who clearly wasn't here for a social visit. They spent an hour measuring, photographing, and assessing structural safety concerns, while I watched from the kitchen window, my hands clenched around a coffee mug that had gone cold twice. "Safety violations trump grandfathering, Mr. Briggs," Connie announced loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "If your structures pose public safety risks, agricultural exemptions become null and void." The contractor kept pointing at perfectly normal barn features, support beams that had held solid for 40 years, chicken wire that kept predators out just fine, and scribbling notes like he was documenting war crimes. That evening, neighbors started stopping by. Word travels fast in small communities, especially when the neighborhood tyrant gets served some legal paperwork. "Heard you gave the queen bee some trouble," grinned Jim Peterson, who lives 2 lots over. His wife had been fined $500 last month for hanging laundry outside. Apparently, clotheslines were considered unsightly domestic activity. Over the next week, 3 more neighbors shared their Harwick horror stories. Fines for lawn height variations of 2 inches. Violations for mailbox colors that were insufficiently neutral. Late-night visits with threatening legal documents over garden shed placement. Most people just paid the fines and complied. They were too scared, too tired, or too broke to fight back against someone with unlimited legal resources and 8 years of practice destroying families. But I'm not most people. And Friday night, Connie made the mistake of showing me exactly what kind of person she really was. She arrived around 9 p.m. for what she called a final courtesy consultation. Preston lurked by his truck while she walked up to our porch, where Marlene and I were enjoying the cricket symphony and the distant sound of our chickens settling in for the night. "Some problems solve themselves, Mr. Briggs," she said, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against her clipboard like a countdown timer. "Unfortunate accidents happen to non-compliant structures all the time." The porch light attracted a cloud of moths around her head, and the screen door creaked in the evening breeze. Her vanilla perfume couldn't mask what I was really smelling, the stench of pure, calculating malice. "Are you threatening my property, Mrs. Harwick?" "Oh, heavens, no," she laughed, but her eyes were cold as January. "I'm just saying old wooden structures can be so unpredictable. Fire hazards, insurance issues, you understand." That's when I realized we weren't dealing with an overzealous HOA president. We were dealing with a criminal. 2 weeks later, Connie found her new weapon: environmental terrorism disguised as public safety. The certified letter from County Environmental Health arrived on a Monday morning, thick with official seals, and the kind of government language designed to make your stomach drop. According to the formal complaint, our agricultural runoff was allegedly contaminating the neighborhood storm drain system and threatening groundwater safety. I read it twice while my coffee went cold, the absurdity sinking in like a stone. Someone was claiming our 12 heritage chickens posed the same environmental threat as a factory farm. "This is completely insane," Marlene said, reading over my shoulder. "We have fewer chickens than most people have houseplants. But insane or not, the county takes environmental complaints seriously," which meant we were about to get an official visit from someone with the power to shut us down permanently. Wednesday morning, the inspector arrived in a white county truck just as Jessie was conducting her morning 4-H routine. The sight of this official-looking stranger with a clipboard photographing her beloved chickens like they were toxic waste made my daughter's face go crimson with embarrassment. "Ma'am, I need to inspect your operation for potential contamination," he told Jessie, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the chicken coop. I intercepted before this got worse. The inspector, a decent guy named Rodriguez who clearly didn't want to be here, spent 20 minutes examining our setup with the thoroughness of a crime scene investigator. The metallic clicks of his testing equipment mixed with nervous chicken clucks as he documented everything. "Mr. Briggs," he said quietly as he packed up, "you've got one of the cleanest small operations I've ever seen. Whoever filed this complaint either doesn't understand basic agriculture or has some other agenda entirely." 0 violations. Our chickens were healthier than most pets, our drainage system was textbook perfect, and our waste management would make commercial operations jealous. But Rodriguez's comment about other agendas got me thinking. Who had the knowledge to file such a detailed environmental complaint? I spent another Saturday morning at the courthouse, this time digging through environmental records and EPA compliance reports. What I found was beautiful in its irony. Preston's construction company had been dumping concrete washout directly into the same storm drain system they were accusing us of contaminating. Not just once, 7 documented violations over 3 years. Each incident carried potential EPA fines of $37,500 per day, and somehow none had ever been prosecuted or even reported to federal authorities. Here's what I'd learned from reading enough property law. Environmental violations create federal jurisdiction, and the EPA doesn't mess around when they actually get involved. One phone call to the right federal office could destroy Harwick construction overnight. The next HOA meeting was held in our community center, a sterile room with fluorescent lights that buzz like trapped insects and folding chairs that creak every time someone breathes wrong. The coffee in the back corner smelled like it had been brewing since the Bush administration, the first one. I arrived with a 3-inch binder and the kind of smile that probably should have been a warning. "Before we discuss agricultural concerns," I announced when Connie opened the floor, "I think our community should know about some actual environmental violations happening right in our backyard." The room went silent except for the old radiator knocking like a ghost trying to get attention. I opened my binder and started reading. EPA violation reports, concrete washout documentation, storm drain contamination records spanning 3 years. Every single violation traced directly back to Harwick Construction's sloppy waste disposal practices. Watching Connie's face cycle through 6 shades of pale was almost worth months of harassment. Preston, who'd been lurking in the back like a guilty shadow, started edging toward the exit. "This is pure harassment," Connie finally exploded, her voice cracking with rage. "You're attacking my family's livelihood over some ridiculous chicken nonsense." "I'm not attacking anything," I replied, keeping my voice steady as a rock. "I'm sharing public environmental records with concerned neighbors. Transparency." The meeting ended with Connie hastily withdrawing her complaint and promising to reassess the situation. Translation: she'd been caught red-handed and needed time for damage control. Unfortunately, Connie doesn't strike me as someone who handles humiliation gracefully. Thursday morning proved me right. I walked out for the newspaper and found all 4 truck tires slashed to ribbons, rubber hanging like confetti from a very expensive, very malicious party. Our security camera had mysteriously malfunctioned between 2 and 4 a.m. The acrid smell of hot rubber mixed with morning dew as I stood there in my pajamas, looking at $600 worth of pure spite made manifest. That afternoon brought worse news. Marlene's phone started ringing with cancellations. The Morrison wedding, her biggest contract this month, was terribly sorry, but had decided to go in a different direction due to neighborhood concerns. By Friday, 3 more clients had mysteriously discovered scheduling conflicts. As I waited for the tow truck, watching my livelihood literally deflate in the driveway, I realized we'd crossed into dangerous territory. This wasn't HOA harassment anymore. This was full-scale economic warfare. If you want to understand how a $5 bandage turned into federal arson charges, you need to meet Princess. Princess is Connie's $3,000 Persian show cat, white as cocaine, with fur so perfectly groomed it probably has its own professional stylist. This pampered furball has her own Instagram account, a custom rhinestone collar that costs more than our monthly grocery budget, and the entitled attitude of someone who's never heard the word no. She also treats our property like her personal kingdom. Every morning for 3 weeks, Princess conducted what I can only describe as reconnaissance missions through our chicken yard. The soft metallic jingle of her ridiculous collar became as predictable as Napoleon's dawn announcement, signaling the start of her daily invasion. My daughter Jessie, being 16 and genetically incapable of seeing a hungry animal without helping, had been secretly feeding this trespassing feline. Leftover bacon, dinner scraps, the occasional treat that turned our farm into Princess's personal buffet service. The smell of bacon grease on the morning air became Princess's dinner bell. And honestly, watching that overweight cat waddle through our yard like she owned it was pretty entertaining. Napoleon would strut around making angry rooster noises, but Princess ignored him with the supreme confidence of someone who'd never faced actual consequences. Until Tuesday morning changed everything. Princess arrived for her usual breakfast just as Napoleon was conducting his territorial patrol. For context, Napoleon is 20 pounds of attitude stuffed into 8 pounds of buff Orpington feathers, and he considers anything smaller than a hawk to be personally offensive. Jessie was collecting eggs when Princess decided to take a shortcut through the chicken wire instead of walking around like a civilized animal. The wire was old but solid, designed to keep foxes out and chickens in, not accommodate obese Persian cats with poor judgment. What happened next was like watching a slapstick comedy in real time. Princess squeezed halfway through a gap just as Napoleon spotted this white, fluffy violation of his airspace. He let out a battle cry that could shatter windows and charged like he was defending Normandy Beach. Princess panicked, tried to reverse course, and caught her paw on a sharp wire edge. The symphony of cat yowling, rooster rage, and Jessie screaming, "Oh no," probably registered on seismographs. I ran from the house to find Jessie cradling an indignant Princess, while Napoleon strutted around like he'd just conquered Europe. The cat had a tiny scratch, maybe half an inch, barely bleeding, the kind of minor cut you get opening a can wrong. "Dad, she's really hurt." Jessie was near tears, examining the microscopic wound like Princess had been mauled by wolves. That's when Connie's Lexus came shrieking into our driveway, spraying gravel like machine gun fire. She must have been monitoring our property with military precision to arrive that fast. "What did you monsters do to my baby?" she screamed, leaping from her car like an avenging suburban angel. Here's where everything went sideways. Instead of explaining that her cat was trespassing and got hurt during an illegal fence invasion, my sweet daughter immediately offered to pay vet bills and drive Princess to the animal hospital. What I didn't notice was Connie holding her phone at hip level, recording everything while Jessie basically confessed to imaginary crimes against Persian royalty. The vet visit cost exactly $47. Some antiseptic, a tiny bandage, and professional confirmation that Princess would survive her traumatic ordeal without permanent damage. Jessie paid with her 4-H savings money, apologizing like she'd personally declared war on the cat kingdom. But here's where Connie revealed her true genius for manipulation. By evening, she'd posted an edited video to our neighborhood Facebook group titled, "Briggs Family Creates Dangerous Environment for Pets." The footage had been surgically edited to remove any mention of Princess's trespassing, making it look like we'd deliberately booby-trapped our property to injure innocent animals. The comments section exploded into digital warfare. "Those aggressive chickens are a menace. Why isn't animal control shutting this place down? I'm keeping my pets locked inside until something is done." Within 48 hours, Connie's demands escalated from reasonable